Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. So this is a little bit shorter video today. I'm just going to show you how to create epic black and white images. I think black and white is sometimes a little bit overlooked, and if it's done well, black and white can really make your photography stand out and really grab people's attention. So this is the black and white image that I'm going to show you how to create today. It's running on from my last video where I took you from this original image here. We went through and used a lot of generative fill and remove tools to remove the cars and the people from the shot, which got us somewhere around there. And then we continued to process that image to do a bit of a day to night to bring it down to this level, and that's what we saw in the last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you now how we go from this image to a black and white that sort of stands out in lots of drama, an epic black and white. If you do enjoy the video, please click like down below. It always helps. I do love your comments and questions and tips that you give, and I do my best to answer all of those. And if you haven't already subscribed, it'd be wonderful for you to subscribe and join me here on YouTube. I'm not going to include a raw file here today because you can take any of your color images that you have and use the techniques I'm going to show you today to get to a really good black and white position. Let me show you how we do epic black and white. So this is the image that we're going to work with. We're going to take this and turn it into black and white. Now there's a number of ways we can do this. The first way I'll show you is using Lightroom, and you have the straightforward. If you look up here in the top corner here, you'll see that you have the black and white module that you can click to change it over. Now if you do just click that, you'll go straight to black and white, and it's not too bad, but it's rather flat. And what we need to do is give the image a little bit more depth and give it more interest to make it epic. I think that's the real key here. So how I do this is I take a standard color image, and what I do is I try to change the position in terms of the color, because once we go to black and white, what we're looking for is an awful lot of depth within the contrast, within the shades of grey. So the first thing I always do is I boost the vibrance really quite high. So I'm going to go up there to plus 60. And then I bring the saturation up as well, which actually makes a color image look quite unnatural, and it really starts to look, something that you wouldn't really want to put out. But what we do is, I'm going to go a bit higher there, plus 30. In doing that, we create an awful lot of color contrast, which we can then use within the black and white module to also to get closer to where we want to be. So now I've changed the vibrance and the saturation. I now go into the black and white module, and we've already got a little bit more depth here in the shot. The next thing I'm going to look at is contrast and clarity. Now, everybody automatically thinks that, adding more clarity makes it look more like a black and white. And sometimes that really does work very, very well. It can bring a picture alive, but also it can make it look rather false. So one of the things I sometimes look at here is I go to a negative clarity. So there we go. That's minus 25. And if you just look, if I go back to plus 25, there we go, and then go down to minus 25. Can you see the difference? You get this almost film look to the image, and in some cases you can even go further, maybe down to sort of minus 50 to get quite a sort of old-fashioned style look, black and white. So in this case I'm going to go probably around about minus 30. I think that's where I want to be. You have to be careful with your highlights because they can blow out quite easily. So we can bring the highlights down just a little bit. And we can bring the contrast up just a little bit as well. In doing so, it does darken the whole image. So what we do need to do is just bring up the exposure just a little bit. Keep an eye on those highlights. I'm bringing them down. And sometimes in the case of this lantern here, it's a bit bright. We can actually bring the whites down a little bit as well, just to keep this under control so that it doesn't go off the scale. I'm just going to brighten one more time, a little bit more on the exposure. And that would be quite a simple way of taking a color image and turning it into black and white. So using those additions of color, and also then having a look at the balance you have between contrast and clarity. But now you've gone into black and white, you can go down to what would now show as the black and white module, where you have the color sliders. And what these do is now give you a lot of control over the color that you had there before. So for example, we had quite a lot of sort of yellowy orange in this light under here. So if I reduce the yellows and oranges, you can see that it has a direct effect on just where the image was yellow. So I can bring that down just a little bit. I know that the truck here was green, so I can increase the green if I want to. It illuminates this fine Indian art sign, and it lights the truck up a little bit more. I don't want to go too far, just probably a little bit there. And of course the sky is deep blue, so if we bring the blue up, we will brighten the sky. If we bring the blue down, we will darken the sky. So that gives you a lot of control in terms of the color that you have within the black and white image. And I know that sort of sounds as a contradiction, altering the color within a black and white image, but that's exactly why you should always take your pictures that you intend to go black and white. You should always take them in color, and you should process them in color, and then you have the options to have more changes available to you when it comes to the processing, and it can put you in a position to create rather natural looking black and whites, and that can work very, very well. So I'm just going to tweak a couple of these little bits here. I don't want the sky too dark, and don't want the signs too bright, so we're just going to find the balance point on those colors there. And I think the whole thing should be just brightened ever so slightly. And I'm just going to bring those highlights down just one more bit. So what you end up with is a black and white that looks quite natural, and it gives you a rather good black and white image that you can go forward with. So that's option one. That's using Lightroom. Now, if we reset this back, there are a number of other options that we can use to go black and white, and there are some third-party software that you can use to help you do that. And one of my favorites actually is Silver Effects Pro. It's part of the Nik Collection, and I'm not sponsored by Nik in any way. It's just something I like to use, and I believe they're on Silver Effects Pro 4 at this stage, and I have had a play with Pro 4, and it isn't a great deal different from Pro 3 or Pro 2. So I in fact have Silver Effects Pro 2 left over from the days when the Nik Collection was free. So I'm still using that to this day. So let me show you how we can use Silver Effects Pro on this image. So I'm going to right click, and I have it as a plugin module available. So Silver Effects, I'm going to click on that, and it's going to load this image into it using the adjustments that we've already made inside Lightroom. We'll click on edit, and what it will do is it will open Silver Effects Pro, and then it will give it its first render of black and white. There we go. So it always starts off in neutral, as you can see up in the top here, and there are a number of different presets that you can use that come with Silver Effects Pro. I've selected 9 of my favorites that I like to use here, and so you start off with neutral, which is just applying the straightforward black and white, which is almost like clicking the black and white button in Lightroom. And then you've got different other presets which basically give you different positions of brightness, contrast and structure, as you can see up here in the top right corner. So if I click on my favorite here, which is high structure smooth, I'll click on that preset and it will render that, and as you can see it's made some changes up here. So you've got harsh as well, which is quite a nice finish. But what you can do is you could alter the sliders once you've got to the preset to see where you want to be. So in this case I might tend to bring the structure down a little bit, and the structure slider is a balance between clarity and texture. So if you do give it a lot, it will apply it on the screen in a way that sort of looks like you've added texture and contrast in Lightroom, but in fact it does give you an ever so slightly different render. It's quite clever actually. So just going to bring that down. You also have shadow and highlight sliders, and you can open up the shadows ever so slightly within this piece of software. And the same with the highlights. You can bring down the highlights. There we go. Just ever so slightly alter that. Also, what you have is you have what they call a control point, and you can add a control point anywhere. So we could put one on this truck, and we could make it just the size of the truck there. And then we can alter the structure, the contrast, and the brightness specific to the truck. So if you wanted to add a little bit more structure to the truck to make it sort of stand out, can you see how that sort of stands out a little bit more? I can give it even more. It makes it stand out very much there as a separate sort of entity. So I'm going to just add a little bit to that and leave that there. And you can add as many of those as you like. So if you want to increase or decrease certain amounts of contrast, brightness or structure in a particular part, you can do that. Underneath the selective adjustments, you have the color filters. Now, in the good old days, when we used to shoot in black and white film, we would tend to use different colored filters to give us different effects. And these colored filters here do exactly the same. For example, the blue sky, which is quite dark at the moment, if we click on a blue filter, then the sky will be quite bright, but it will affect the other colors. Whereas if we go to orange, of course, the sky would be very dark. The blue colors won't be coming through. So you can pick which particular filter you think works best for you. And then the grey one is just the neutral filter, which is where you start off from. So I'm somewhere between the neutral and the green. I quite like the green filter. I think that works quite well. And then underneath this, you have film types. You can actually go in here and select a type of film effect. Back in the good old days when we used to shoot film, you could go for Kodachrome, or you could go Ilford Pan F was a big favorite back in the day. Created very dark and contrasty shots. So, but I'm not going to use a film type filter on this particular image. You can also add or increase the amount of grain. So I can bring grain down and we can make the image more grainy if you wanted that sort of grainy effect. Something that I've never really been into is having grainy type images. We spend most of our time trying to get rid of grain using denoise and other functions. You can also soften the image and harden the image depending on the grain structure that you've got. So I could select to soften that just a little bit there, or you could click it to harden the image with regards to the grain. So I always give it a little bit of softness just to break it down a little bit. And then we get to the black and white color sliders. Now they're the same things that you saw in Lightroom. We can adjust the blue sky. Here we go. We can adjust the brightness of the blue, and we can change things just the same. So I want to bring down the yellow just ever so slightly, because this area here is quite bright. I'm going to bring up the green just a little bit, just to boost the truck a little bit more. And I'm really not going to change, maybe just a little bit darker with the sky, and I'm happy with that. You also have a tone curve as well, so you can always add in a little bit of tone curve to the image if you wanted to create that sort of more contrasty, more controlled look with the tone itself. I'm just going to undo that. I quite like a flat line when I'm dealing with contrast, and I tend to prefer to use the sliders at the top. And then at the bottom here, this is the last sort of section. You've got the histogram at the bottom, but this gives you some control over the final tone of the image, and certainly back in the day when we used film, different types of black and white film had ever so slight different tone colors, and of course you had the extremes like sepia, and you can pick that here. And if I do this pull down menu, you can see that we could take a sepia effect, number 22 there, and it will render like a gentle sepia, or we can go 23, it will render more of a sepia. So you've got different sort of tones that you can apply as you go through. Now, the one I really like is selenium, which is a sort of blue color, a bluey gray. If I come up one, there you go. That gives you quite a more of an effect. But I actually prefer number 4, which is just a subtle effect. which gives you quite a nice color finish. So I'm going to click on that. And the last couple of boxes you have here, you have a vignette. Well, that's obvious what that does. You can add a darkened vignette around the edge of the image to sort of bring more focus towards the center of the image. But you can also have white frame effects where you can actually lighten the outside of the image, which is sort of thing you used to see in the old days with black and white images. They would sort of lift and lighten at the edges from where they were processed in the darkroom. And then you can also add black frames as well, so you can really bring down the edges if you want to. In this case, I'm just going to put a lens fall off at number 1. Just bring that in there. I just want to soften this image a little bit more than it is, so I'm just going to bring the structure down, and I'm just going to bring the brightness up slightly. There we go. And maybe just drop the contrast back just a little bit. Yep. And that's where I want to be. Actually, I'm quite happy with that shot. So it's a really great piece of software, a Silver Effects Pro. You know, it's quite expensive now because you have to buy the whole suite from Nik. But I will put the link down below, so at least you can find it. And you know, you can have a choose. There is a 30-day free trial if you want to try it as well. I do like it, and as I say, I've had it for many years now, and I still with Silver Effects Pro 2. So anyway, once you're done and you're happy, you click save, and it will process that image, render that image, and put it back into Lightroom for you. And then if you want to, you can always do some final touches there. So we just let that go back into there. So we're back into Lightroom. If we wanted to do anything else with this, we can bring down the clarity just a little bit more if we want to, and I might bring down the highlights just slightly, open up the shadows just a little bit more. I'm just going to add a little bit of vibrance, which will just take the tone and make it shine a little bit more silver. So there you go. That's they're the two different ways I do black and whites. And if you want to go from a color image like we had there and turn it into an epic black and white, that's two ways that you can choose to do that. So I know it's a short video today, but I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to give you any raw files for this one because you can take any color image that you have and you can use one or more of these effects to get really good black and white. So if you enjoyed the video, then please click like, and as always, I love your comments, questions and tips that you can put down below. I would do my best to answer all of them, and if you haven't already subscribed, it would be really great for you to join this continued adventure that I have here on YouTube. For now, I'm going to say bye-bye.